Which TV series is the best to start watching and then bail before reaching the end? House of Cards. Jesus, the last season was a shit show. Seasons 1 and 2 of House of Cards are top notch, and don't watch any more than that. Really, if you stop at the end of season 2, that last moment of the last episode is a perfect place to leave it. Season 2 was good, but the writers for season 1 were epic. Every word was on point, no fillers. You really had to pay attention to the dialogue. Happy Days. You can stop watching after Fonzie jumps the shark. I think if you are watching him jump the shark, you have already missed the turn. Is this a question to make Dexter, Got and Him fans relive their awful series finales? The ending of Game of Thrones was the biggest disappointment of my life. I'm still heartbroken when I think about it. It wasn't just a bad ending. The last season ended all the setup and character development in the earlier seasons. I used to rewatch every year, but now I can't even rewatch the good parts because I know all of it is pointless. I'm a book reader who tuned into season 8 because I just wanted to know how the story ended. The one I'd been reading since 1996. I will die mad about it. Once Upon a Time. Feel free to try and change my mind. The first couple of seasons were fantastic, but after a while it just became too ridiculous. I had to stop watching. I stopped watching after the Frozen season. I stopped watching mid-Frozen. Like, I know Frozen was in at the time, but I felt like there were still so many classic characters we still hadn't been introduced, but money made them do Frozen. Like Rapunzel and Cinderella and stuff. Or maybe I'm forgetting, but I'm pretty sure they hadn't made appearances before Frozen. Maybe after, but IDK. Nah, Cinderella was before Frozen. She was part of season 1. Edit. Rapunzel was also before Frozen in season 3. In episode 14. Season 4 was the Frozen season. Dexter. I stopped after the Trinity Killer season, so in my mind, it's still one of the best shows of all time. John Lithgow is one of my favorite actors. Seeing him and Dexter was such a game changer and he did such a good job. Fun fact about Lithgow, but as a kid he and his siblings used to be babysat by Martin Luther King Jr.'s wife, Coretta Scott King. Eater. He was also considered to be Hannibal for Silence of the Lambs, but ultimately lost the role. He's the only guy I could see even coming close to Anthony Hopkins' creepiness level in that movie. I liked most of Prison Break. Wasn't a fan of how the commercials were edited out. You basically have to rewatch the last 15 seconds every time there would be a commercial. Plot wise, season 1, great. Season 2, A. Should watch to get to season 3. Season 3, good. Season 4, what? Season 4 was a textbook example for a show that really didn't know when to end and how. I get that TV making is a business, and if a show makes a profit, they have to keep going. But after season 2 everybody involved really should have taken a deep breath and said, UHM. We have no more story to tell, so let's just end it here. Okay, BTW. I just remembered that there was also a 5th season. It was exciting, but also extremely dumb. They gave T-Bag a cyborg arm for no apparent reason, and if someone would tell me that it was originally conceived as a new 24 season, I would believe it. Still, the very last scene got a huge laugh out of my mother and me, and I believe it even was intentional. Close bracket. Don't forget our intrepid prison breakers going toe to toe with the Taliban because Murica. Once Upon a Time. Super entertaining and fresh take on stories most of Western culture could recite in their sleep. Then they hit Frozen, and rather than making their own twist on the stores, the writers just played along with the let it go mania. Ruined it for me. The show was good, but also entirely too convoluted and insisted on having every main character have had a finger in someone else's backstory. It seemed like the entire histories of 30+ characters could be traced back to 4 people's actions. Convoluted is an apt description. Suits. You get halfway through the series and get past the entire purpose of the show. After that, you can stop watching and you never miss anything of importance. Yeah, it literally just turned into a stream of corporate mergers and lawsuits you could never figure out, and people saying this is an impossible situation. being handed a folder with one piece of paper inside, looking at it for less than a second, and saying this is brilliant. What do you want in exchange? That's just the whole show. Ha 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 ha. Pretty Little Liars. Watch up until they find A and leave for college. I believe that's the end of season 5. Anything after that is just unnecessary. The A reveal is 6x10. Absolutely nonsensical reveal from start to finish. Made me realize all that time I spent thinking of theories and paying attention to all the little hints throughout the seasons was pointless. It got so bad that the showrunner had to do an online Q&A with fans to answer a lot of the smaller mysteries that the show forgot about / failed to answer. Game of Thrones. Seasons 1-4 are amazing and live up to the hype the show once had. Season 5 and 6 are okay. 7 is pretty bad and season 8 is unholy. It's an absolute travesty. Game of Thrones S1, S4 is possibly the best television I've ever seen, and I don't think I'll ever be able to watch it again. That's why we are really butthurt as fans. Even if we forgave the NBS they rushed, because duck us apparently, they retroactively shit on the previous great writing. ITA not like The Office or some other shows or even music, where you can just stop and enjoy the early stuff. It all was built up and depending on itself. So by ducking up years of character development you make the early stuff unwatchable because it feels pointless. I never really cared for the people of King's Landing is the biggest docu I have ever seen on television. The Vampire Diaries. The originals. Drinking game on all the town and college festivities. All ending in a bloodfest. Make you an alcoholic. Supernatural. Conceived of as a 3-season story arc that was stretched to 5. The creator left because he told his ducking story, but the actors built a cult following and there was no way CW was putting their cash cow out to pasture. Edit to mention it is in its 15th season. 10 full years past the point the creator wanted to end it. It got an extra 10 years, almost as if somebody made some kind of deal. Wow. Mind blown. Last episode isn't even going to wrap up the story, it's just gonna have dogs bustin' and maul everybody, same as how the first season ended. Arrested Development. You can quit after season 3 and not miss much. Agreed. First 3 seasons have some of the best writing on television, and season 3 actually ends the show. Then season 4 is fine, but it's really confusing at times and just isn't as funny. Then season 5 was just bad. Couldn't agree more. It was sort of a victim of its own success, which is weird to say about a cancelled show. I like the fragmented structure of season 4 was born out of necessity, because the original cast were all in such demand and juggling other roles. Turning Michael into a sad sack and pitting him against George Michael was the biggest fault of the later seasons, I think. Their relationship had been the relatively stable emotional core of the original run that kept the wackiness just grounded enough. It lost that touch of sincerity and just felt mean-spirited by the end. Heroes. Bail after season 1. Supernatural. Bail after season 5. I honestly still liked it so far. Just finished season 12. Yeah, the bigger plot isn't as good, but the show is still great as far as season-contained plots go. Supernatural morphed into a show that just leaned into what the fans wanted, and I loved it for it. The episode that takes place purely from the inside of the car was amazing. Exactly. Yeah, the season 5 story was a great story, but to me the show wasn't about the metaplot. It was about the characters, goofy shenanigans, and rock and roll. A journey, not the destination thing. The Misfits. Watch the 2 first seasons. Afterward the main characters disappear one by one, replaced by worse characters, until it is just a hollow shell left of the charisma of the original. You have to watch S3 to get the conclusion of the Simon and Alicia storyline. And plus nobody could take Nathan's place, but Rudy comes close. Yay, Rudy was so ducking good, hahaha, I love that show. Would rewatch start to finish. Scrubs. Scrub the last season. Great 8 seasons indeed. Heroes. Started out great. One of rare best single seasons of television. Multiple competing story arcs that come together in a perfect resolution. A lot of the blame for later failures is placed on the writer's strike, but I believe season 1 was so good, it could not be matched. They wrote themselves into a corner and were left with, now what? It's partly that, and partly that it was originally planned as an anthology series, following different groups of people each season. So at the end of season 1, all of those character stories were done, and then they had to bring them back and make certain people not actually dead and stuff. I like the writer's strike also ducked them in the second or third season, and they had a rough time recovering after it. Walking Dead. First few seasons great, then it just goes on and on. Lost interest when I realized they were never going to find a cure. It's just the same loop over and over. Find safe place. Shit goes down. Forced to leave. At this point, the real Walking Dead are the showrunners. Didn't it just get cancelled? Orphan Black. Gets too complicated and loses the original edge. Weeds. You'll know when to quit. Jane the Virgin. Fun idea. Gets dumb. Wow, Orphan Black. I totally forgot about that. I'd never been hooked by a show so hard before, and it was an absolute thrill ride for a bit. But then yeah, it got a bit. I stopped after whatever season ended with the reveal of the male clones. I don't remember what season that was. That was already kinda weird for me. I stopped watching Shameless after Fiona left. I stopped watching Shameless when it became apparent that the writers were just going to turn all of the characters into pieces of shit. Yeah, they all became so unlikable. Debbie was pure cancer. Yeah. Debbie raping the guy to pregnant was when I quit, and I probably should have stopped a lot earlier. Oh boy, wait until you hear about season 10. Spoiler, season 10 ends with Debbie being chased by the police after being charged for statutory rape of a female. Exclamation mark. How I Met Your Mother. Lots of great lessons along the way, but boy did they F up the last season to bits. Him is a great answer because you can literally watch it up until the last 15 minutes or so. Hell, watch until the last 5 and you're still okay. It's at that point that they reuse the ending plan for S1 and take a crap all over their character development. Last season was very subpar, but still had its moments. And the mother is just a fantastic character. The mother is just a fantastic character. Completely agree with you on this. The mother was maybe the most built up character in the history of TV, and by God did they deliver. After 8 seasons nonetheless. She was perfect. I wish someone would pull a Karate Kid was the bad guy and make a supercut of how big a douche Ted really was and how his friends just put up with his shitters. Heroes. First series was excellent. Second wasn't bad. Rest was a shambles. The writer's strike killed that show. That and Brian Fuller's departure. X-Files. It's easily in my top 5 favorite shows ever, and I honestly don't know how, or even if, it officially ended. It's easily my all-time favorite show. Some of those early episodes are among the best in TV history. I didn't care too much for the new episodes though. The overall plotline was interesting, even if they didn't conclude it. But I think most of the best episodes were actually one-shot, Monster of the Week ones. They managed to get real character development in there, like the Jersey Devil.com, the field where I died. I'm not a horror fan in general, but I love the mix between spooky, nature horror, and empathy. I remember when the show was airing, when I was a kid I was annoyed by the Monster of the Week episodes, because I really wanted to know more about the aliens and his sister. As an adult I don't really care for the alien episodes and the entire plot behind his sister annoys me, and I love the Monster of the Week episodes. I don't think I've ever even seen the final season, the original final season, not the 2 new final seasons. Red vs Blue. I still like the show, but the show needed to end in 10 or 13. Both had amazing finals and I don't understand why they kept it going. Money? That 70s show, Don't Suffer Through Randy in the last season. Hemlock Grove. The first season of this was awesome. The second season was meh. The third season was just bad. But I had to see how it would end, and it was just so disappointing. Lost Girl. I thought the premise of this show was cool, and I love Monster of Week type shows, like Supernatural was, so I really got into it. As the seasons went on it declined in quality and the last season was pretty bad. But I kept up with it to see how it would end, and it was disappointing. The whole ending fell flat, left a lot of loose ends, and the final battle was way too easy. When it was over my only reaction was, really? That's it? It's like the writers had no idea what to do with the show, and were just like, duck it, apostrophe. I have to give that 70s show this. The last season had some huge problems, including the loss of 2 main characters. But the show ran for 200 episodes, and I can't remember one that didn't get at least one big laugh out of me. I didn't hate Randy, he was no Eric, but everyone acts like he was awful. I mean, the Fatso episode is a classic. I think what makes everybody hate Randy was that he was obviously supposed to fill the void that Eric left, but was too much of a non-character to do that. As a random, recurring guest star in any other season, he would have been better liked. IDK if this counts. If you watched it, you will know what I mean. But for me personally AHS, it's one of my favorite shows. But I feel like the premise of each season keeps declining. Yeah, the first 3 seasons were great, then after that, it was garbage. I did think the cult one, season 7, wasn't that bad though. First season of Altered Carbon. Season absolutely falls apart in the 3rd act, but the first 2 are the closest we got to Blade Runner TV show. Stop at episode 7. Hey, thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.